Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. Welcome back, everybody. We've got plenty to go over today, including a few items from yesterday. Shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park and Shay Meehan, as well as all our other patrons. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and the Humanity First movement. Congressional leaders have said they will vote Wednesday on a one-week extension of government funding to buy time for negotiators to iron out the details of a pandemic relief bill. If they don't approve a funding bill, which the relief package would be a part of, we are once again facing government shutdown. That our elected officials are so partisan that we come to the brink of this regularly is shameful. In a small ray of hope, congressional reporter for Bloomberg Eric Wasson passed on that Pelosi told him she hopes to get stimulus checks added to the bill, but it's really up to the president to get on board. A bit confusing since it's the Senate that's opposing a large stimulus package, not Trump, but I guess it can't be bad that Pelosi has said she's for them, not that I trust her all too much. There is a concerted effort amongst lawmakers to get stimulus checks into the bipartisan bill, though. Bernie, the Progressive Squad, Markey, and some others, even a few Republicans, have expressed that stimulus checks are an absolute must. Republican Senator Josh Hawley said, quote, "It's the most useful, helpful, and frankly popular aspect," end quote. I know, right, Josh? Bernie and Hawley are heading efforts to rally the troops on their respective sides in support of it. Aides told reporters that Democrats are largely in favor of another round of checks. They just need the Senate to agree to add them to the package. Washington, D.C. has passed their own $1,200 checks, but just for those who were eligible for and applied for pandemic unemployment insurance by November 30th. Conditional aid to cover some people who were left out of the conditional aid added to the normal conditional aid that supplements your conditional survival income. How about enough conditions on survival? We can do better than this. Also, people in D.C. need to stop calling themselves Washingtonians. That's my state. Visit bailoutthepeople.com to take action for a bill that includes actual stimulus in the form of monthly checks, and volunteer to donate to organizations in Georgia fighting to turn the Senate so that we can get real stimulus passed without obstructionists crippling it. On that note, I was explaining to someone in the simplest possible terms today about why inflation is not a threat in the United States right now. If you're not familiar, it's because inflation arises from a rise in demand without a rise in supply of goods or services. But free market competition leads to more demand increasing production as long as natural resources can support that increased production. If you try to raise prices, your competitor, who just sells more stuff at a lower price, will take your customers. The U.S. economy is only at 73% of potential production capacity right now, meaning we have plenty of room to grow. Until production is limited by productive capacity rather than consumer buying power, we will not see widespread inflation. Thought I'd share that since it's such a common concern and not a topic most people have a reason to be informed on. It really is quite simple in the end. Either you can produce enough to meet demand, or you can't. There can be other causes too, but those are for countries who don't wholly control their currency, which is not a problem for us. There's a link to a Twitter thread with a simple explanation in the podcast description. Jack Nikas has written an article and thread on another social media cancer that we haven't really dug into before, which is fake accounts. He features a 21-year-old user who spoofed accounts for various high-profile figures, including Trump's family members, even tricking Trump himself while impersonating his sister. Granted, that's probably not as hard to do as for most people. While that might be funny, what he did with those fake accounts was spread misinformation and hate speech and scam Trump and conspiracy supporters for money, much like Trump himself. He said he did it for fun. Anyone who bothered to look at the actual username would likely figure out pretty quickly that it was a fake, but that didn't stop many from believing. So this is the state of things. Random people destroying the country for laughs, mostly out of ignorance. You can read more about fake accounts and why they're so hard to police in the article and thread below. Some researchers have released a new phone app called My COVID Risk, which provides an easy way to assess the risk of most scenarios to help people make informed decisions with the latest expert advice. You give it some simple inputs, such as whether the event is indoor or outdoor, percent of participants wearing masks, etc., and it gives you a risk assessment such as low, medium, or high. The idea is to inform, prevent arguments, and make it simple enough that people don't get frustrated with safety guidance. Sounds like a pretty decent idea. Think I'll give it a whirl. Apple has also released a tracker app which you can opt into, and the software will do its best to alert you if you come into contact with someone who has the virus. It only knows as much as people tell it, of course, so it's far from perfect. Nothing like South Korea's mandatory tracking. Yang joined Trey Crowder, the director and star of the UBI documentary Inherent Good, which just came out. You likely recall the advanced screening from a while back. Andrew talked with Trey and Mark Agee, and will also be hosting a screening event with Humanity Forward December 10th through 13th. Link below. Have you ever wanted Big Boss's signature on your copy of The War on Normal People? Donations of $10 or more to Humanity Forward right now will give you a chance to win one of 6 hardcover copies signed by Yang. An investment in UBI and a signed Yang book? Not a bad deal. Finally, Kidizenship is hosting a $1,000 writing contest for ages 8 to 18 to submit essays on who their most inspiring civic hero is. If you're like me, you've probably got a certain entrepreneur in mind. Well, guess what? He's one of the judges on the contest. Not sure if there are rules about using a judge as the subject of your essay. Seems a bit fishy. But might I suggest one of Yang's greatest influences instead, one Scott Santon's? And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Thank Bernie, Holly, the squad, and others for fighting for stimulus checks. Share the DC checks info with anyone you know who lives there. The Kidizenship writing contest, and the Humanity Forward book raffle. Take a few moments to catch up with bailoutthepeople.com to see what you can do to help. Bookmark and share the inflation explanation and the fake accounts thread. Don't forget to put in your half hour a day of phone banking or text banking to support the efforts in Georgia. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, or United Way. And don't forget to Yang Daily.